the neck, the shoulders a little. I like to kind of scoop my hands down behind me, elbows come up. You can get a little stretch in your arms, and then slide the fingers over the shoulders, right to the collarbone a couple of times. And if it hurts, don't do it so hard. If it hurts good, then that's okay. You might go back to a spot there. And then let's just rub our hands together, get a little bit of warmth going, and you can start to think about where you want to put this warmth today. Sometimes I like to cup my warm hands over my eyes. Feels really good to feel the eye sockets. Sometimes I do put a warm hand on a knee or the side of my neck or something like that. Anywhere you think of, we'll just take a deep breath, rubbing our hands. And as you breathe out, go ahead and place the hands, feel that energy, breathing out. And then settle back, settle down into your seat for a moment. You can leave your hands there as long as you want, or you can let them come down and rest. It's okay if your spine is softly curving. Maybe let your head drop a little bit, just settling, feeling gravity begin to hold you to the earth as it always does. And then lift the spine back into an upright position. Take just 2 or 3 really big breaths. You might even open your arms to kind of stretch the chest open. You can lift the arms up and maybe rock a little. And then we're just going to start to move any way that feels good here. We can rock side to side, coming in and out of your stretches this morning. Just these really first intuitive stretches. What are you feeling? Where are you feeling it? And then let that go. There's really nothing to be done. You can rock in and out, heart opens and then tucks in. I like this idea of there's nothing to be done. It has 2 sides, as many of you may realize. On one hand, it's a little bit of despair, that feeling of there's nothing to be done, that feeling of being lost and not having power. And on the other side, there's this relief, like a surrender of realization that there's nothing to be done. And so you can just think about that back and forth in your life, that yin and yang, the 2 sides of the coin. And then slowly leaning back, hands behind. Let's bring our feet flat to the floor. Rock the knees just a little bit. And then bring them back to center. Walk yourself all the way up and wrap your hands or your elbows right around your knees. Start to walk your feet in a little closer. Almost a squat of a kind. If this hurts your knees, then keep the knee open a little bit more, walking the feet more forward. You can lift and lower your feet, get a little wiggle in your toes. And then pull yourself through, push the knees apart, pull yourself through the legs just for a breath or 2. And then turn toward one leg, take one hand behind, lean back for a breath. And then as you sit up, cross that hand over toward the opposite knee and twist pretty deeply here. And then drop the knee that's behind you now down toward the floor as you're twisting. See how that feels, looking slowly behind you. We have not warmed up the spine, so it's pretty tight here. Lift the knee back up, uncross the arm, lean back. Maybe stretch the legs out and rock the feet a little. And then slide the feet back onto the floor. You might find a new position that you like better. Maybe the feet a little wider, something like that. Anything is here is good. Hold on to the knees. Pull yourself through. Push the knees back and the chest forward. Stretch, kind of pulling up through the legs there. And then with the arm opening the knee on that same side, take the hand behind. Open the heart. It's hard to describe. And then as you're leaning back, lift the arm, cross it over and twist a little deeper. And then start to drop the knee down, drop in the direction that you're twisting. Feel that stretch. You might not go all the way down to the floor. Feel the tightness in the spine. And then take the hand behind, lift the knees up, rock a little. Maybe now you want to rock a little deeper. Just see how that feels. And as you rock your knees over to one side, let that hip rise up and follow. You might even put your hand in the base of your back and rock a little bit there. Oh, that feels really good. If something feels good, really enjoy it this morning. We're going to just focus on our connection to what feels good. Not necessarily the positive, but just the pleasant. Yeah, okay, back to center. Soles of the feet can come together. Knees can open wide apart. Sit up nice and tall and rock a little bit side to side. Get that curving in the side of the waist. Yeah, and the shoulders. Yeah, that feels pretty good. All right, we're gonna do another twist. I'm gonna lean forward a little bit here. You can keep your spine up as tall as you want and just cross one hand over toward the other leg. Maybe grab a shin, drop the shoulder, open the other shoulder up, lengthen the neck. Take a deep breath. It's hard. You might have to come up a little. And as you exhale, turn forward. Pause, maybe round and flatten and flex the back a few times. And then cross to the other side, going as slow as you need to, dropping the shoulder, opening the top shoulder up. Long neck, deep inhale, and on the exhale, rise up, lean back. We're just gonna keep one foot tucked in, stretch the other leg out, getting a little bit into the inside of the leg here, just rocking back and forth, pretty long and tall in the spine. Maybe even kind of reach forward with the chin as you lean forward to get that inner leg stretch. And you can keep adjusting, kind of bending the knee and straightening and fiddling around so that you get deeper and just allow the body to see how it feels. And it's just fine to start to kind of lean away from the long leg just because of the way we have the other knee bent. That might happen more easily. And let's just go with that and start to lean toward the bent knee side of the stretch. Long spine here too. Lift your heart, open the shoulders. You might even take the arm up and you can just reach out supporting with that lower hand. Inhale, and on the exhale, rise. And just rock a little side to side, just evening it out. And we are going to turn toward the long leg. Now, you might want to keep the knee tucked in, the foot tucked in here, or you might want to send it back behind you. That feels pretty good. Just a little different work there in the knee, leaning toward the long leg. And I don't go very far, my hamstring stops me. I'm just gonna hang out at the edge of that stretch, the foot nice and flat, and see what's going on in that hip that I just turned awkwardly back. Maybe rock the shoulders a little. In this low and slow yoga, there's always this rocking component, that side to side, back and forth, trying to engage with what's pleasant. Take a deep inhale. On the exhale, see if you want to go just a little deeper. Lifting the head upward and then walking the hands in. Lean way back and get that stretch across that quad of the leg that's bent back. Yeah, oh. Some people can even lay all the way back, elbows to the floor, or something like that, but my bones don't allow that. Just wiggle your toes a little here and your nose. And slowly sitting up, just rocking the knees as you slide the legs back, apart, and rock side to side. Okay, so we're going to tuck the other foot in, rocking forward and back, getting that deep inner leg stretch to start us off here. And as always, these first stretches, as we're coming into contact with each different point, it'll first feel stiff. It might even kind of tense up a little more. That is the body's survival mechanism. If you need to, use your supports. You can use blocks, things, pillows, blankets. Good, and I'm just gonna start leaning toward the bent knee now, just kind of rocking in that direction. And the long leg might rock forward and back a little, letting that hip rise and fall. Lengthening the spine, feeling down into the hip on the floor. And I'm sure you guys all know now that you probably don't always feel it right where I say you will. That's because I'm saying what I'm feeling. So just kind of paper over that with what you're feeling, and don't ever feel like you're not doing it right if you're not feeling what I'm saying, Come on up and turn toward the long leg. See how it feels to have the leg folded inward. And then come up and see what it feels like to tuck the leg back. And neither one is better than the other. It's just going to give you a slightly different sensation. Turning more and more toward the long leg. Pausing, maybe rocking side to side here rather than forward and back. Always that gentle rocking. Let the breath just simply flow. With the next breath, see maybe you want to go just a little deeper, or maybe you've already gotten there. And on the inhale, lifting up, walking the hands back so you get the stretch maybe across the thigh of the back bent leg. If the leg isn't bent back, then don't worry, you'll get your stretch somewhere else. Let's breathe right down into the core of the body, right around the belly button, the navel. And then wiggle those toes and come on up and bend the knees and rock a little side to side. Let's go ahead and lay all the way back right into tree pose on our back. Lying down, stretching just whatever leg out you want, opening the other knee wide and settling right into this supported, held, lying down tree pose. And let yourself do very little here. Let the work be mostly just in gravity, opening across the pelvis, right across the hip bones. Your arms can do whatever they like. If you're more energetic today, you might stretch them up, but I'm just going to let mine rest. And I'm going to take 3 deep breaths right into the center, right below the navel there. And that is our center of gravity. It can also feel like the center of our self, our willpower, our passion. See if any of that connects for you today. One more deep breath there. And then start to bend the other knee and place the foot on the floor flat while that knee is pointing up. The other knee is still out wide the way it was. I'm just going to rock the knee that I have just bent. I'm going to rock the foot on the floor side to side. Arms can go wherever you want. And slowly but surely, I'm going to stretch the bent knee that was bent earlier. I'm going to stretch that out down the mat and just roll the knee that I have up close to me and pull it in and roll it over right into the knee over twist. And I'm going to leave my arm behind me so I can open across my chest. And then I'll stack my shoulders and come into this side lying position and really rest here. And you might want to roll the shoulder a little or rock the hip a little or even find a little cat and cow movement here. See how that feels right against the floor. The belly rolls forward and then pulls inward. You might start to stretch the leg out in front of you, coming up onto your toes, lifting the heel, rocking the leg in the socket. Just see how that feels. See how it adjusts. You might get a little pop. I'm going to take the top arm over my head just to add a little bit of opening in the shoulder. And then drop the heel of this leg that's out in front of us. Drop it onto the floor. Keep the toes on the floor and kind of roll to the outside edge of the foot that's in front of you there. The other leg can just be soft. Take a big breath. And then relax again. Let the elbows bend. Let the knee bend. Let everything soften. Take a deep breath in and out. If you're interested, you could start to bend the leg that's underneath you. I'm actually going to walk it down the mat a little bit and maybe even try to get the hip that's under me a little bit further under so that maybe I can reach back and tap the toe or just reach in the direction of the foot, the toes pointing toward my hand or my shoulder. And I'm going to stay on my side for a couple of breaths, just playing with the quad muscle that's on the ground down there, bending the knee and releasing it a few times, feeling that big muscle. And if and when you're interested, you can start to push those toes into the floor in front of you there and roll yourself back onto the hip or even onto the back, letting that top leg drag, bending the knee a lot. You could even take the arm that's been over our heads and bring it down to the knee that's in front of you there. You could bring the foot to the knee that's underneath you and bring everything together, all those little connections. Hand to knee, toes to knee, hand to foot. Try to take a big breath and see how it stretches right across your belly button. Yeah. And then release, relax, and roll all the way onto your back. See how it feels. Scoot your hips. Keep your knees bent if you want to, or stretch the legs out. A moment of stillness. Closing your eyes at first and just noticing how you feel inside your body, if there's tingling or even blank areas. And then open the eyes, look around, and then try to feel inside your body while you're looking around. It's a little challenging. You might stop and gaze at one thing and then tune in to the body, and then begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Slide your feet up onto the mat, rock the knees side to side. See how you're feeling, pulling the knees into your chest, rolling them around a little bit. So I'm gonna rock myself up. You can roll yourself over, coming up however you feel safe. And I'm gonna sit up and just turn around on my mat, lay back into tree pose now on the other side. Letting yourself soften, letting the hips open just a little more. Breathe into that right below the belly spot. You can hear the sound of your breath. And then bending the knee of the long leg, putting the foot on the floor just on the inside of the other foot, and just rocking that knee in the air a little, side to side. As you're rocking it, you're going to start to straighten out the other leg and move into your knee over twist. Rolling. You can rock a little. You might need to scoot the hips over to allow yourself to roll a little deeper. Yeah, just breathing in the twist. Take another breath. And then the shoulders begin to stack. That arm that's underneath can reach up under the head there. Other arm is forward. Hip is rocked forward a little, knee flat on the floor. Knee is really bent right in front of us. And then we'll start to straighten the foot. The knee out, bring the toes to the floor, lift the heel and rock it up and down a few times. See how that feels in your hip. And of course, if you need to have your knee more bent, I hope you just go ahead and bend it. Good. And then let the knee soften. Relax, and you can start to bend the foot that's under, bend the knee that's under, lifting that foot up and down. You might reach for those toes, staying on your side for a while to allow yourself to really get into the quad of the leg on the floor there underneath. And then of course, as you know from the other side, we're just gonna see about maybe pushing the toes into the floor in front and rolling onto our back, or just one shoulder coming back. Breathing. And if you want to make those little connections, you might really bend the knee in front of you so that you can bring your hand down to it and get a little pinwheel shape going. Ah, yes. A human pinwheel. Imagine that. Imagine being anchored right at the center of your body to the stick that we hold of the pinwheel, and our body spinning around in the wind. If that makes any sense. Smile a little bit and take a couple more breaths. You might slide that foot to tap the knee. Yeah, closing all those connection points. Feel that stretch right across the stomach, and slowly release onto your back once more. Scooting around, softening down, and letting go. And do that practice once more. With your eyes closed, feel inside your body, anything, even noticing the blank areas. And then opening the eyes, looking around and feeling inside your body. Finding one thing to stare at so that you can Really tune in to both what you're looking at and what you're sensing in your body. And then begin to move your fingers and toes. Step your feet onto the floor, nice and wide on your mat, and rock the knees side to side. Yeah. And let's go ahead and take our time rolling over or rolling forward. I want to come onto hands and knees, and you are welcome to just rock yourself up, cross your ankles, roll forward onto those knees, and settle into child's pose. Or maybe you prefer hands and knees table, whatever feels good to you. Figuring out how you want to be on your knees today. And of course, if you prefer not to be on your knees, you can do everything that we do on our knees, you can do on your back. You just pretend like you're on the ceiling there. So just let the head get heavy, let the hips go as far back as they want to go, and start to let the belly sag. Really let go of the work of the core here. And maybe rock a little. You might get your ribs rolling side to side a little bit. And I want to do just a little bit more work with the inner edges of the legs here as well. So I'll come up a little higher. The hands way out in front of my shoulders so that I've got a nice angle from my shoulder to the hip and shoulder to wrists. And as I shift over to my left hip, I'm just going to play with my right foot. I'm going to kick it out and pull it in and roll back a couple times. Yeah. Just getting that hip moving a little bit that way. And then I'll come up a little higher, lean to the right this time, and that right foot is going to slide forward, and I'll sit back on my hip. And then come up, swing back onto the knees, and you can even swing the leg all the way out again. You can rock around. So we're just rolling that hip socket all the way through. See how it feels. You might have to pull it forward a little as you sit back. One more time. Hopefully you're getting just a little bit of stretch. Maybe not. And then big toes come back together. You can be up higher in a full table or back to child's pose, and take 2 deep breaths. Can you tell a difference in your hips? Maybe. Rock your shoulders side to side. And then coming up a little bit higher onto the hands, shoulders lifting, kicking now the left foot off the edge of the mat. You kind of rock to the right, and then the foot comes back in. Just a couple of times with just that outer kick. Yeah. And then back to center now, rocking over onto the left hip. We're going to pull the foot through, slide it through forward, and sit for a moment. Of course, this other knee, if it doesn't like that, then you might stay up higher and not have to deal with that. Walk forward a little so you can swing the foot out and back, maybe rock back and forth, just moving that whole leg forward and back. Yeah, and what's going on in that lumbar spine? You might drop the belly here. Just once more. And then back to child's pose. Big toes together. Let's come up onto our elbows and walk the elbows right under the shoulders so that your back is really, really flat. And if you need to, you can lift the hips up higher. You can rock forward and back a little bit. And then just start to walk your hands over toward one side of the mat. And I'm going to stay in a pretty deep child's pose for this stretch, but you could come all the way up to table and reach all the way out to the side from there as well. And just settle in that rocking shoulder to shoulder, feeling the stretch along both sides of the spine and down into the hip. Couple breaths. I know it's a long time to have our knees deeply bent like this. We'll be moving out of this very soon. I'm going to crawl over to the other side. You'll be doing that when you feel like it's a good time for you. And from here, let's crawl all the way down onto our stomachs to open up the knee joint and let it take a big break. I'm gonna leave my legs really wide, the way that they were kind of in child's pose, my knees right off the edges of the mat. If that feels good, go ahead and practice that. If not, then just move your legs and knees to where they need to be. I'm gonna stay in Sphinx pose for a moment as well, walking my legs further down the mat, flattening out more and more across the pubic bone, across the hips, the pelvis, and then beginning to breathe really deeply into the front of the body, all the way from the pubic bone up to the base of the throat, up and down, just feeling the breath move the front of the body. And of course, you're going to feel it in your back as well. Just enjoy both. Try to see where your body feels the best. It's such a fun game. One more breath. And then I'm going to reach out with my left arm and bend my right knee and reach back for that foot. But I'm staying mostly on my stomach. And if you don't reach the foot, you can wrap it with a strap. You don't have to worry about it. And I'm just going to kind of rock the foot in and out a little bit. I'm getting a little bit of a pull on the inside of the hip here. Deep breath. And relax and try the other side. Reach out with the arm. Turn a little bit to the left and bend the left knee and look at the toes. See if you can see them. And release. Coming back onto the elbows, let's crawl our elbows in as we start to press into our knees and lift the hips off the floor. Crawling the elbows until they're right under the shoulders and the hips are right over the knees and my knees are still really wide apart, and start to rock here back and forth. Maybe stay a little longer in that back reach, walk the hands up the mat and then slide forward. Oh, good. That's good. And then bring your hands right into the elbow prints. And my knees are still really wide apart. You are welcome to adjust your knees whenever you need to. But now I want to walk the hands a handprint forward of where the elbows were and bring the hips toward the floor. Not all the way. And the knees are still wide apart for me, which means that's a lot of pressure in the low back. So please feel free to readjust those knees. Rocking forward. As you rock forward, you might bend your knees and bring your feet off the floor and point your toes, stretching across the front of those quads. Yeah. Only doing what feels right and pleasant, enjoyable. And slowly coming right back to a really nice even table pose. The knees are right under the hips, the hands are right under the shoulders, round the back. Pull the belly button toward the spine, or actually toward the ceiling through the spine. Drop your head and look at your toes. Curl those toes under. Rock your heels a little bit, side to side. Roll from the big toes to the little toes in a rounded spine. Deep breath into the back of your body. Now, if your body is hoping that you will move into down dog, feel free to do that. If it occurs to you, it is not important. I'm going to start to flatten my back, lifting the gaze, walking my eyes right up to that front edge of the mat. I'm going to look right at that edge as I stretch back with my right foot, keeping the toes curled under, rocking the weight, shifting the weight in my hands a few times. My hands, my leg, my knee. I'm going to slowly slide that long leg across and behind off the opposite edge of the mat and look over my shoulder for that long side stretch. That feels very nice. And come on back to center. Bring the knee right back. Let's come down onto our elbows for a breath to twist out the wrists. Knees on the floor under the hips. You can rock here as well. And draw the breath really deeply into your lungs and then let it go. Back to table. Hands are right under the shoulders. Fingers are wide apart. Curl both toes under, both feet. Slide the left foot back. Press into the ball of the foot and rock a little, just feeling the weight shifting. You'll feel your core engaging, but not too much. Just enough to remind you that you have a good abdominal network. And then begin to slide the long leg across and over off that opposite side of the mat to look over your shoulder at your toes and stretch your side. Almost wants to say, feels really delicious. Come on back, bring the knee back down, elbows to the floor, twist the wrists. Very nice. As you breathe, just letting the breath flow gently. Again, if that idea of down dog occurs to you, listen closely. Bringing the hands back under the shoulders, taking your time coming into table for a full cat and cow, about 3 or 4 rounds of really rocking the spine. Let your head and your tailbone get involved, lifting them away from each other. You can even imagine that your tail grows and you can reach and tap the back of your head when you're dropping your belly. And then when you're rounding your belly, your nose can reach through and touch your tailbone. Just that rounded, continuous circle of energy back and forth. And let's come back down onto our elbows and over onto one hip. So I'm going to walk my knees over to one edge of the mat and drop down onto the hip. So I'm on my shoulder, on my elbow and my hip. My knees are stacked. And I'm just going to kind of lift and lower this outer rib, rocking the hips on the floor. So I'm getting a little bit of an under body stretch and then rocking up. Yeah. And you can lay all the way flat here instead and get a much slighter movement in the hips. You could also come up higher and get a deeper rocking there. And we're rocking side to side from our hip. Okay, so let's see how it feels to do this from elbows first, if it's okay for your shoulder. I'm just going to take the top knee and start to draw it in, slide my hand down the shin to the ankle, the toes. You can use a strap here and start to pull the leg back, pointing the knee down the mat. But I want to swing it back and forth a few times. Notice what's happening underneath you in the side body. You're having to use that girdle of core. You're engaging and strengthening those muscles and warming them up. You can get a little back bend and then a little curve, cat and cow. Yeah. And the next time your knee comes forward, swing that leg way out, hold on to it underneath, and then lift it upward. You might not go all the way up, and you might need to bend the knee and have the knee bent instead, or you can reach the legs up as high as they'll go. Sometimes, since we're up on our elbow, the toes might be a little closer. You might be able to grab somewhere new. Now feel that stretch underneath the body that's toward the mat there, and let the shoulder kind of sag, let the heart, the neck sag down. Take another big breath. And then lower that leg all the way to the floor. Point the toes and lift and lower that leg a few times. Maybe not very high. I really want the stretching down is what I want to feel. And you might even slide the toes further down the mat, push into your elbows, lift your shoulder, and slide yourself down the mat a little bit, back and forth. Rocking through the shoulders, the hips, the leg. Yeah, whew, okay. Now I'm gonna reach down the mat with the leg, let the toes be on the floor, reach way down and walk myself onto elbows, a little bit of a sphinx, pushing myself upward. That leg is way behind me. You can drop the knee a little or you can rock the hip a little. You can move into a sloppy pigeon from here. You can pull the knee that's underneath or more in front of you there and slide it under you more, rolling the hips more forward. Or you could stay in more of a side pose. You could bend both knees, twisting into a pinwheel. All just fun ideas to see how the body feels here. Breathing and rocking as always. Slowly coming onto table pose once more. Cat and cow, or maybe just crawling up and down the mat a few times so you get a little movement here. See how that feels to crawl backwards on your mat and forwards again. And of course that cat-cow movement might come in naturally. One more time, crawling back and forth. Crawling is really good for our brains. And of course, if something else occurs to you, like a down dog, you could do that too. Notice how I have not done one down dog yet. All right, you guys ready for the other side? I'm going to turn around, go down to the other end of my mat for this side, and I'm going to let the hips drop to the floor, knees are stacked, come down onto the elbow, and rock the belly side to side, moving the hips, the shoulders, kind of juicing up, bringing all the fluid we need into all the ligaments and joints and the fascia. Oh boy, does the fascia love this. That network that wraps us up. Remember, you could go all the way down flat here. You could come up a little higher. See how that feels, a little deeper stretch. Yeah. And then onto the elbow, or whichever position you prefer. Bending the knee, pulling it in, slide the hand down the shin and play with the knee. Pull it back and swing it forward a couple times. You might find a spot you love and you want to stay a little longer. But notice the cat and cow movement in the spine here as well. You can pull the belly in and send the heart forward. And of course the breath, the ever-present companion, moving with your breath. The next time your knee comes in, you're going to lift it up, and you might just lift the knee and hold on to the shin, or lift the leg, letting it come up. The knee on the floor is nice and bent, so you've got a really nice solid foundation, and you're letting the shoulder really slide up and sink down, your chest sinking down into the shoulder socket there, stretching, taking a couple of deep breaths. And the long leg starts to float down to the end of the mat, pointing the toes, and come up with your belly and your spine as the leg stretches down the mat, and stretch it a little further down and then pull it in a little closer. And of course you could be lifting and lowering instead, or as well. I really like that side. I'm like rolling on the outer hip on the floor there, sliding the leg down and up a few times. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Rocking. Honestly, I can't remember what we did next. Anybody want to show me what we did next? Oh yeah, elbows on the floor in front of us. Thank you, Nicolene. Reaching back. Oh yeah, we go into our pigeon from here. Yay. Okay. Elbows on the floor, you can start to slide the bottom knee in, and the long leg is back. You can start to pinwheel. Oh, that's great. Oh. Rocking as much as you like. Drawing the breath in, full deep breaths in, long, slow deep breaths out. And walking yourself back up. This time let's walk to seated instead of hands and knees, and come into whatever is your favorite way to sit, including what you like to sit on, sliding yourself into a comfortable seated position. Now, that's not a true thing for everyone. If sitting is not comfortable, you could of course lay back instead. We want the spine to be long and tall. I want the shoulders rolled back and the chest really open right across there, yeah. And you might even take your hands and kind of spread them across, right under the collarbones, feeling that right across the front of the shoulder joint, and then start to reach way back. Send the heart forward, squeeze the shoulder blades together. And as you settle into your pose, you might sit the sit bones a little deeper, gaze straight down at the floor in front of your legs, and then walk your eyes forward on the floor, up across the computer, up the wall, squeezing the shoulder blades, lifting the head just a little, the chin, open the throat, take another breath. And then lean forward, bring the arms around, give yourself a really big hug, pull your chest inward a little bit. And if you have osteoporosis, you want to keep the mid to low back really flat, and just gently tuck your chin and round your upper shoulders. If there is no osteoporosis, you can let your head and your shoulders droop forward a little deeper. One more breath here. Look down to see which arm is on top. Lift up and open the arms way back behind you. Again, reach and do that gaze practice. Walk the eyes from right down in the floor in front of you all the way up, slowly up to the ceiling above you, if that's okay for your neck. Lean back a little, squeeze those shoulder blades, open the heart. Your fingers might even touch the floor behind you. Inhale, and on the exhale, arms slow motion come forward and wrap the other arm on top. Tuck the chin and stretch. Yes, that is feeling good. Slowly lifting up, let's take our hands to our kneecaps, leaning back and plant the feet on the floor. And let those knees, let one knee drop way in and then lift up, and then the other one. See how that feels. If you'd prefer to just be much more gentle side to side, that's fine. Okay, let's bring the soles of the feet together and stretch them out into a really big diamond. Now here I'm sitting right on the edge of my blanket so that my pelvis drops forward. The bowl of the pelvis drops forward as if there was water in the bowl, it would spill out a little bit. So the back bend is kind of in the low back here. And that's how I'm gonna lean into my stretch with the pelvis tipped forward. The shoulders are still kind of rolled back. Yeah, and I like to rock, do what you like to do. You might take one hand toward your legs and the other hand toward a hip for a little twist. Yeah, I like that. A little bit of rocking forward and side to side. We're just gonna go a little deeper. We do this almost every Friday. It's just one of the nice things to do for our hips. When you're ready, you're just gonna lean back. You're gonna take one foot and kind of tuck it in a little bit, and the other foot you're gonna walk across and in front of the inner leg. So you come into a square pose, and it's just fine if you start to kind of turn a little here. Lift the heart. Remember, open the chest, lean into your hips, maybe a little, maybe not much at all. You can put something under your knees if your knees need that. Flatten your feet. You have to kind of readjust if you really flatten your feet. And do you feel that in your hips? It makes my nose wrinkle up. Yes, I do. And slowly back up to center. Soles of the feet back together. Any distance from your body that you like. Maybe wider, maybe closer. Leaning into it, rocking a little. This is our neutralizing position. You might take one hand to the foot, one hand to the hip again. Gentle twisting. Really important to keep the spine long here as you're forward folding and twisting. That's a lot going on. All right, and then we're gonna let the other foot kind of tuck inward a little, not far, and now the new foot in front. A little variation of square pose, just a wide open crisscross and leaning into that hip stretch. Keep breathing. Walk the hands in and come on up. Rock a little. Okay, we're gonna have some fun with our blocks. You could also use a blanket or a pillow for this. So I'm gonna start. We're gonna be laying down and sitting up and adjusting and putting the block at different positions along our spine. So if you don't wanna do that and you'd rather just find a pillow or a blanket, roll it up and lay into a hip opener, that's great. You could do that instead. I'm gonna start by laying back and with the block under my head, right under the base of the skull, the occipital ridge right there where the neck turns into skull. And I want to rock my head just a little there, and you might have to kind of reposition so you can get a little rocking side to side. And I'm just going to lay back. My knees can stay bent or legs can stretch out. I want a little massage on the back of the skull. If this doesn't work for your neck, you can do it on the floor as well without using the block. Good. Rock the knees a little. Bring the head back to center. Roll over and come on up. And place the block long ways down your spine. I'm probably going to use another block under my head so that my neck doesn't fall back too much. And I'm going to lie down the base of that block, probably a little lower than the bra strap. And the shoulder blades might tuck onto the block or fall off the edges. Yeah, and you can rock your knees if you want to. You're letting the block be a little bit of a massage, that little pressure from edge to edge, or find a corner. Take another big breath. If you're really enjoying this and you don't want to stop, you're welcome to stay. Maybe bring your soles of the feet together, knees apart, and let the body settle for a couple breaths. And if you want to, come into another shape. You can roll over, sit up, and we're going to skip that mid to lower back portion with the block, and we're going to put the block right under our hips. But of course, it's probably best to take the blocks off the mat, lay back nice and flat, lift our hips into bridge pose, and slide the block under that way. All right, now we've shifted the spine all the way down here. You should be feeling a pretty big back bend, but one that kind of is, what's the word I'm looking for? The back bend here in supported bridge is sustainable. That's the word I'm looking for. And I like to rock my knees, but you might prefer to be still. Some people also really like to stretch a leg or both legs out here and get that front of the hip and the psoas stretch. If that's great for you, go ahead and practice that. And again, like all the other positions, maybe you want to stay longer. Maybe you've already finished with this stretch. Take a couple more deep breaths right down into the belly. I'm going to go ahead and take the block out now and let the hips come to the floor. Those blocks are there for you in a minute if you want to go back to any of those shapes. Just taking your time, choosing what works for you, bringing the knees in towards your chest if you'd like. Rocking side to side. I want to come into a little bit of a happy baby. So spreading the knees apart toward the armpits, right off the ribs. Flattening the feet toward the sky, maybe wrapping the hands behind the knees or the thighs, walking them up to the ankles. You could use a strap here right over your feet where you can grab your toes, inside or outside edges of your feet, and just allow the legs to open and soften, stretching through the back. Now, if you have any kind of osteoporosis, you are not going to want your tailbone this high off the floor. You're going to want it nice and flat, so you're going to just release the knees a little more. If you have that osteoporosis, you're still going to get a nice wide stretch. Nice deep work here. I'm going to eventually let go of one of my feet, but I'm going to enjoy the happy baby for a couple more breaths first. I love to rock here. You might rock all the way to one side or the other. See how it feels. And I'm going to hold on to my right foot now and let my left foot in slow motion, keeping the knee bent, slowly come down to the floor. And I might just stop right here, rock a little. I might want to stretch the left knee out, opening the leg, maybe. That's a really deep stretch. See how it feels. And whether your knee is bent or your leg is stretched out, I'd like to invite you to reach across your body, grab the foot that's close by you with the opposite hand. So I'm grabbing my right foot with my left hand, and I'm going to start to roll it over the body and bring the foot to the floor. And the arm behind it might follow you up and then just hang behind you. This is just a wide open knee over twist. If it works for you, just enjoy it. If not, readjust. You're welcome to scoot your hips, whatever you want. One more big breath. See if it is interesting to straighten out the knee at all. That's a big stretch up the back of the leg. And then bending the knee pretty deeply. You can keep holding on and roll onto your back, or you can grab the knee with the other arm and roll yourself backward. Okay, both feet can come to the floor and rock or stretch out. Neutralizing. That's a really deep stretch. Need a little moment here to do pretty much nothing and let the body kind of catch up with where we've been. Wiggling the toes, opening the eyes to look around, and pulling the knees into the chest again. We're going to go into our full happy baby once more. It's really nice to repeat some of these poses, just noticing the depth, the transitions that the muscles and the joints make. Feet starting to flatten toward the floor, lifting upward, widening, rolling the ankles a little, rocking. And you know where we're going. We're going to hold on to the left foot and slowly let the right foot come to the mat. Keeping the knee bent or straightening it out, just pausing in your half happy baby for a couple of breaths. And then reaching for that foot with the opposite hand, right hand to the left toes this time. Rolling it over the body. See how that feels. Stretching. The other arm might reach back. The hand, of course, could just kind of hang. The shoulder could hang. You can stretch out the leg that you're holding onto if that's interesting to you, or if the wall isn't in your way. One more breath. And we're rolling out, and we're moving into Shavasana. Wherever that takes you today, is listening to your heart for where you want to settle your body this morning. And it's okay to take a few breaths in one position and then decide to transition to another one. I thought we'd practice a little loving meditation, maybe sing a little bit, just settling into what works for you this morning. Reminding yourself you don't have to listen, you don't have to do anything. This is all just voluntary. Anything that you do is what you're supposed to do. So those few deep breaths, continuing to allow the body to recognize that it's time to do nothing, time for Shavasana. We're going to practice loving, and we're going to feel the love of other people, and we're going to feel that love for ourselves. So see if this works for you. See if you can bring to mind someone for whom you feel affection or love, and you know they also love you. And this might be a person, a pet, a deity, an idea, the universe, anything you like. Realize, understand their love. And then begin to turn that love from yourself to yourself. Imagine that you are them sending yourself that love. It might be easy to suppose that this would be easy. Let go, or try to let go of expectations about what you should experience. How much, how easy, etc. Just notice and expect, to whatever extent you can feel, any sense of love coming back your way from yourself. And in my experience, this is hard to sustain. I kind of come in and out of that feeling of love. It comes and it goes. And that, my friends, is life. So let that go when you're finished feeling that love. And just breathe, listening and resting. You're always welcome to hum along. May all beings everywhere be happy. Be happy. Take several deep breaths, filling up with air and letting it go. You might purse your lips and blow the air through, just feeling the air on your lips, the nostrils. You're welcome to stay lying in Shavasana and simply bring your hands to your heart there, or gently transition into a seated pose. Taking a moment of inventory, how do you feel? What has shifted? And maybe take this moment to set an intention for the rest of your day, priming yourself for goodness and love. Thank you all so much. Namaste.